Trump is resetting the financial system. We've heard about the great financial reset, but I don't think this is what they wanted or this is what they expected. Remember, Trump left the last presidency saying that Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies used for nefarious activities. And during that time, Larry Fink from BlackRock said the exact same thing. And there's things that happened that we're not privy to from Trump leaving presidency to 2023 when Larry Fink flipped and said Bitcoin is now a flight to quality. And also, Trump admitted he was buying crypto at least 3 years ago, which would have been 2023. So something that we're not privy to happened behind the scenes. And then Trump comes back running as the crypto capital of the world and the Bitcoin president. Promises made, promises kept. So in today's video, I'm going to take you a little bit deeper. This is going to be a longer video. There's going to be multiple videos that I'm going to play, but I want to help you stay stoic and stay calm. And I want you to start learning to say this. Why am I invested in something, not what to invest in? I want you to get out of the get rich quick mindset, get wealthy for sure by understanding how the banks actually work. Number one, how the banking system is radically transforming. And number three, how to position yourself to make sure your family is on the right side of this. Because yes, the great financial reset is here, but I don't think this is what they expected. Trump is about to flip it upside down. So let's jump right in. The first thing that we're going to watch, and if you're new to my channel on the back end of every video, I share with you exactly what I'm going to do. Okay. Once you watch this video, I want you to pause and I want you to go to Tucker Carlson's YouTube, and you need to spend 2 hours watching this video. It's Richard Werner exposes the evils of the Fed and the link between banking, war, and the CIA. Okay, remember, politicians take us into war to gain wealth. Business people like Trump want peace, totally different economy. And I'm going to show you how the Trump family is moving to decentralization. The exact thing we've been investing in, that exact thing we've been talking about, and how they're about to rewire the financial system. But we first have to understand how banking works. So you're going to need to hang out with me for about probably 20 to 30 minutes here. Okay, so go watch this full 2 hour video. I want to give respect to Tucker Carlson. We're going to watch 2 3-minute clips of this to help you understand how banking actually works.
And I thought it's crazy that, you had for over a century this debate between these two theories, but nobody had actually done the scientific thing. Let's find out. Let's just test with the data and observation which of the
So what he's saying is, how do banks actually create money?
The theories is in line with the data and which is rejected by the data. Now, to do this, I needed a bank that would cooperate. And my plan was, well, I'm going to take out a bank loan and we're going to watch inside the box, inside the bank's accounting system, how are they accounting for this and what transactions are taking place when I take out my loan. The intermediation theory says deposits get lent out. The fractional reserve theory says that the bank needs to have excess reserves at the central bank, and that's then used for the new loan.
Yes.
And the credit creation theory, you know what it says? It says when you get a loan, no money is transferred to you. It's transferred away from anywhere else, and you just credited new money out of nothing that is not transferred away anywhere inside or outside the bank, which seems, quite sort of extreme,
like magic.
In fact, one uses the conventions to use Latin for this. The money is created ex nihilo, out of nothing. So when it did the empirical test, the conclusion was the financial intermediation theory is rejected and the fractional reserve theory is rejected. Banks create money out of nothing. By the way, you can look it up. It's the most downloaded paper of all Elsevier publications and it's open access. So can banks individually create money out of nothing?
Any bank. Just to be clear, not just central banks.
Any bank. In fact, that's the whole point. We're talking about normal banks. With central banks, it wouldn't be a surprise.
But the Bank of Omaha can
any bank creates money.
Okay. So that's a little bit different than we've been taught fractional reserves, right? So we do know that they're lending out, they're making magic money, right? But this is wild, man. I'm a nerd. I took my time to read through this. I highly recommend that you go type it in. Can banks individually create money out of nothing? the theories of the imperial evidence. Read through the whole thing. Okay, come to your own conclusion. What we do know, this is why the central banks, this is why Christine Lagarde wants a central bank digital currency. And I'm going to show you what the Trump family is doing. I'm going to show you why the billionaires are moving into Bitcoin, because this old system is dying off. Okay. Now, remember, Trump is they're going to lower interest rates during his presidency. They're going to print a ton of money, but only if we as Americans actually use the money to create growth. It creates GDP growth. Somebody's going to catch the ball with this which is high inflation. This gentleman wrote a book around Japan in the 1980s that shares what happened to economies. Japan was cranking. Okay. I highly recommend you watch this guy's videos. It's pretty powerful. Okay. But we have to understand the mechanisms of money, because they're going to lower interest rates in a printed environment. Now we're starting to see why the Trump family is supporting decentralization, why BlackRock is the number 2 holder in Bitcoin. Now, don't worry. We're going to go through quite a few videos, and we're going to start to tie this together and help you understand why I invest in deflationary assets. So
it's really a public privilege that the banks have to create money. And the question is, how should that be used? Now, hopefully it's used, in favor of the people. And it can be, bank credit can be a marvelous engine of enormous economic growth, prosperity, and in fact, abundance. And that's one message I want to get across. We can have high, sustainable economic growth, which is very stable and smooth, but very high, creating a lot of wealth for the majority of us, prosperity, without inflation and without crises. This can be done, but we're not getting it. Why?
No.
Why?
Yeah, why?
Listen.
And I'll explain the mechanism. So there's 3 scenarios. When a bank creates credit, there's 3 possibilities. What has been happening since the 1980s in most industrialized countries, most Western countries, is that banks, encouraged by the regulators, by the way, the BIS in Basel,
think about
bank regulation.
Yes. This is really important, guys. Listen, okay? Listen to what they're about to say. Remember, how do banks make money? Interest income. How is the economy held up? Interest income.
National bank regulation, the Basel framework. They've been encouraging that the banks lend for unproductive asset purchases, for the purchase of ownership rights, mostly in real estate, but it could also be financial assets, any type of asset. Now, that doesn't contribute to national income. It doesn't contribute to GDP. And if you look at the definition of GDP, it's not in there, because, hang on, you're buying this asset, somebody else is selling it. Well, that doesn't add value. GDP is a value-added concept.
Right.
So it's not in there. And that's
real estate's correct. Real estate itself is not a productive asset.
Exactly. Well, the transfer of the ownership in real estate, that shouldn't affect GDP. And that's why it's not in GDP. Of course, the real estate agent business is a business, and that is part of GDP, but that's just a fraction. When we talk about the actual full transaction
exactly.
That's much larger, and that's not in GDP. So when banks lend for asset purchases like real estate purchases, financial asset purchases, because it's money creation, it has an impact. Now, what impact is that? Let's look at Japan, 1980s. The banks were doing what? They were lending massively to people to buy property, real estate. If they were just financial intermediaries, it wouldn't be a big deal, but it's money creation. So actually, the banks are creating a lot of money and they're pumping it into the real estate market. And now you don't have to have studied economics to tell me what's going to happen with real estate prices. When all the banks are creating new money and they're pumping it into the real estate market through their real estate lending.
What's going to happen is what's happening in the United States, where real estate becomes unaffordable.
Exactly. It's not rocket science. Real estate prices are pushed up. This is true for all assets. So when banks lend a lot for financial assets, the prices, the values of these financial assets will be pushed up. But it's a Ponzi scheme, because it works only as long as the banks continue to create more credit for others to join the game and buy these assets. And the moment the music stops, the banks don't increase credit for asset purchases, then asset prices won't rise anymore. Because with this, when I discovered this, I found the causal factor behind the land price rises. And I tested it, and it's true. It's the real estate lending explains the real estate price movement very nicely. And that's, of course, that has many consequences.
Okay. So here's why the Trump family, BlackRock, are moving into the new digital real estate, Bitcoin, XRP, Solana. Okay. Trump pledges to prevent U.S. bank digital currency. He is dismantling the central bank system. He is working to put us in control. If you pay attention and you understand what's happening, you're going to be on the right side of this. Listen.
I also remain fully committed to my pledge never to allow the creation of a central bank digital currency in America. It won't happen. My first. Thank you. And the other night, I will say, with some of the congressmen and women, they wanted that so badly. That was so important to them. I was impressed that they knew what the hell it was, to be honest with you. Please, sir, please, the central bank digital currency. Well, you have to make sure, sir. And I'm saying, what do you know about that? It's amazing the knowledge that people have gained all of a sudden. We had a lot of problems with some of them. I said, we've already got it from the Fed, right? From Commerce and from an executive order. You don't need it a fourth time. Sir, we have to get it. It's amazing. But they knew their subject, though, didn't they, huh? And we helped them out.
They knew their subject. They wanted a central bank digital currency, guys. I think we're dodging a bullet. So let's just, we have to use our own logic. Listen.
My first week in office, I signed an executive order to ban the creation of a CBDC in the United States. And very soon I look forward to signing legislation that will codify and ban make it a permanent law, put it in permanence.
Okay. So he wants to ban a central bank digital currency, which is fantastic. Okay. We're going to keep going with this. Howard Lutnick, okay, this was 2 months ago. This is him. He is now the Commerce Secretary for the United States, who is always right next to Trump. He's going to be a billionaire in Bitcoin. He owns Cantor, which gives Bitcoin loans to crypto companies. He teamed up with SoftBank. They're now competing against MicroStrategies, Strategy B, formerly MicroStrategies, to be a Bitcoin treasury. Listen to what he says about Bitcoin.
It's a commodity. And once you embrace the concept of a commodity, you'll see how beautiful that is and how that fits into almost every thoughtful box, right? No one stops someone from selling oil from one person to another. No one should stop someone from selling Bitcoin from one person to another, using Bitcoin, however they want to do it. You want to put it on an exchange? Fine, call it a commodity exchange. But let's understand that Bitcoin, if it's treated like a commodity, is the freedom that we all who are watching this podcast, we all look for.
Understood.
Okay. The freedom we all look for. But 5% of supply is gone, and most people can't even afford Bitcoin. Like, think about this, guys. Just in 12.5 trillion BlackRock, now I'm reporting this earlier, this was posted last week, says Bitcoin is having a great year as the US becomes the crypto capital of their world, in a letter to investors. I showed you this last week. Crypto holdings represent a sizable portion of Trump wealth for the first time. Look at that. In 18 months, they gained about 600 million in crypto. In about 24 months, their wealth from crypto will be more than decades in the real estate market. Let's listen to Eric Trump talk about modernizing the financial system. They're literally dismantling the central bank.
The willingness to actually look forward and realize that the modern financial system is broken. It's slow, it's expensive, and there's nothing that can be done on, blockchain that can't be done better than the way that the current financial institutions are working. SWIFT is an absolute disaster. There's not a week that goes by that I'm either trying to send out a wire on a Friday afternoon or trying to receive a wire on a Friday afternoon. You're worried if you're going to hit that 4:00 cutoff time, and where you might not see whatever funds you're supposed to be receiving in the ordinary course of business, for another 72 hours or whatever it might be. It's insane. Why do banks work 9 to 5, with a long lunch break, Monday through Friday. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's, you could go try and get a mortgage in the United States or really anywhere else around the world. But, you and, whoever your spouse is, you could sit there for 90 days, 120 days going through and know your customer with a bank that's literally been your banker for the last 25 years, and it takes you 120 days to get a mortgage to buy a house. By the time you get the mortgage, the house that you want to buy is already gone, and your dream's already imploded. Like, this isn't modern finance. This is incompetence. Try and transfer money across the world. You want to go buy a watch. You want to go buy a car. You want to go, do whatever it is. The banks take half of that. You have currency conversion rates. You have all sorts of things. You have to find a branch bank in a country with a banker you've never spoken to before. You don't even know if they're, a real life banker or they're a fraudster. Whereas you can open up a DeFi app right now. You can open up, any cryptocurrency app, and you can send money wallet to wallet instantaneously without the expense, without the variability. Our banking system is broken.
Are you paying attention yet? And hence why they created World Liberty Financial, their DeFi platform. Co-founder Trump, Eric Trump, and Donald Trump Jr. and Barron. The thing he just explained, guys, around banking systems. That's why I used my Bitcoin, my own wealth, to leverage on a DeFi platform to buy my insurance brokerage. Now, are you seeing what I'm seeing? Now, are you seeing the infrastructural change? Yes, there is a great financial reset, but I don't think this is what they were expecting. I don't think they expected that Trump was going to come in and run as the crypto capital of the world, the Bitcoin president. I don't think they thought they were going to create a sovereign wealth fund. And I don't think they thought the president of the United States was creating a DeFi platform that's completely opposite of the traditional banking system that we just watched in the front end of this video. Are you starting to see what I'm seeing? I'm now the bank. Yes, I use a traditional bank to pay our employees. We have the banking system set up. But when I get paid excess capital outside of debts and non-negotiables, I transfer that into cash flow. Once I get cash flow, I put it in deflationary assets, things like Bitcoin and XRP that have a fixed supply, just like the Trump family's doing. I put my money, excess capital, into insurance. I'm in the first position. You remember how banks make money? Interest income, fee income, and capital markets income. I'm moving my cash into first position, into a supercharged, what I call savings. We use tax code 77028. We can borrow against insurance tax-free. To what? Richest man in Babylon, to get more cash flow, to buy more deflationary assets, multiplying our money. And number 4 is leverage. We're becoming our own bank. What he just explained, Eric Trump, is exactly what we went through. I could have gone to the bank and spent all this time, 90 days, 120 days, trying to get a loan for my firm or my insurance brokerage. All I did was go to my Bitcoin. Once KYC was finished, everything was locked in. They knew, know your customer. The money was in my account, and it seemed like 15 minutes. Think about that. I didn't have to fill out paperwork. I just had to have the collateral. So the first step is to understand how the banking system works. The second step is to understand that cash is inflationary. The third step is to understand that they're about to print the living shit out of your money. And if you think the real estate market's going to pump, they just proved it. If people are just buying a new home and transferring homes, nothing happens. We need GDP growth. We need growth in the economy. But that's a positive thing. Trump is not worried about the public and private sector coming together. You're going to see massive growth in your economy. Now, when you get that growth and you're paid in someone else's debt, the fiat system, you want to learn to transmute that wealth. That's exactly what I'm trying to explain to you guys. And I thank you if you've been here this long. Those are some longer videos. It's not exciting stuff. And I challenge you to go read that PDF. Can banks print money out of thin air? And I challenge you to understand fractional reserves and credit-based reserves. Guys, the system is broken. The system is rewiring. The system will never be the same. So what you're experiencing is an infrastructural change from Web 2.0 to Web 3.0, industrial to technical, a broken archaic banking system to a faster distributed ledger technology on-demand liquidity system. And you're transferring from an earth industrial paradigm to a quantum paradigm. So the question I have for you is, in 2030, Will your kids look back and say, my father, my mother, my head of household was a legend because they locked in, they got dialed in spiritually, mentally, financially, and physically, and became a legend? Or did my father, head of household, or my mother sit on their hands and watch the greatest wealth transformation in history pass them by? The ball's in your court. As we always say, Warriors, rise. Get your shit together. God bless you.